It's very saturated here. So there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of production houses here. So a lot of work gets like dispersed, so it's not more relaxed, but because you don't have that many shots, but you get the budgets are a lot higher here. So because there's so many production houses, they can just keep pushing more work onto different production houses. Whereas when I was working in South Africa, your deadline was very tight, and you had to kind of like just work around that.
Yeah.
They have their differences, they have their perks.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mark.
And I'm Yaku.
And welcome back to Department Spotlight. It's the show where we speak to our friends and colleagues about their experiences in the film industry. And in this case, it's the British film industry and the South African film industry because we have a special guest, Niel
Vosloo. Niel is a good friend of ours. We studied together at AFTA from 2014 to 2017. And he currently works at the Flying Colour Company, which is a company that has done visual effects on films like Nocturnal Animals and shows like Killing Eve, Flowers, and just a ton more things. So we're going to chat to Niel about all of his experiences working for them and just get like a glimpse about, what the British film industry is like. I think it's going to be a very good conversation.
So let's get into it.
Hey Niel, welcome to our podcast.
What's up, man?
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. Let's give some context. Obviously, Niel, we were all at AFTA together from, 2014 to
2014 to 2017, I think.
17, 16, around there. And then since then, obviously, you've abandoned us and went over to the UK.
I took a little rowboat and just sailed across.
Exactly. You're doing really great things right now. You're working at the Flying Colour Company, which is a really, really awesome post-production house there in London. The real London, not like East London here in the Free State. So it's very impressive, and we're going to chat obviously about what you do, what it's like working for this company, and just get some insights.
Our first question is, why did you move to the UK / why did you abandon us?
Well, the reason I moved to the UK was, my wife and I were kind of ready to kind of move to the next step in our careers and just life, really. We were ready to take that next step. So it was a really good opportunity, I think, to just move to the UK because there's a lot of production houses here and it's very settled here with the industry. So you can excel yourself a lot further when you come to the UK than having to work remotely from South Africa.
Yeah. And when you got there, did you immediately find a job, or did you go with a job already, or what was that like?
So when I got here, the production house that I was working for previously for 3.5 years in South Africa was Digital Union, which we did a lot of outsourcing work from the UK. So I had a contact here when I got here, which they do. I think it's a streaming site. It's a football streaming site. Mm-hmm. So I basically came here and I did editing and motion graphics for them for their show.
Okay,
cool. How I started here.
Cool. And how long did you do that?
So I was with them for about, I would say 8 to 9 months.
Okay.
And then I kind of just wanted to go more freelance to kind of get more contacts and stuff like that to go into the film industry. Mm-hmm. I just felt that doing streaming and stuff just wasn't that much in for me. I just didn't enjoy it as much. But yeah, then I started, and then COVID hit, so kind of curveball there, and not having lots of contacts didn't help. But I did have some work at least during COVID.
Okay.
It wasn't much of a dry spell.
That's good. That's very good. And you mentioned your wife. Did she have a job, or did you guys just?
Yes. So she had a job previously. When she got here, she started working for a production house called The Farm in Soho.
Okay, cool. So are you guys living near Soho now?
So we currently live in Camden.
Okay.
Not too far from Soho. Living in Soho is really expensive.
Yeah.
It's super duper expensive.
It's probably way more expensive than what you're used to this side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, awesome.
That's way different.
Okay, so then how did you get the job at the Flying Colour Company?
So how I got the job was I applied through LinkedIn, basically.
Okay.
So it's very different compared to South Africa. Like South Africa, it's more of, or it is kind of here, it's like who you know, but in London, it's very, you would need to have a professional LinkedIn page. Otherwise, they kind of just glance over you and just bypass you completely. So yeah, no, the ad was on LinkedIn, or they post ads, not very regularly, but like a lot of companies here post ads on LinkedIn and stuff like that. So you kind of need to be on your A game to kind of find those jobs and those openings.
So LinkedIn actually has like a purpose in the UK.
LinkedIn has.
Wow, it's not really much of a thing here in the film industry. I suppose it's a thing. It's a thing here in other industries, but not really the film industry.
Yeah, South Africa is like LinkedIn is more business orientated. I feel like they're not very film orientated.
Yeah, true. So so you started working at this company. What is your title, and why are you Chris Hemsworth on the about page?
So I'm in data and editorial. So more of a explanation of that. I basically do the conforming. So I take the transcoded footage and the proxies and turn them and then link them to the high res footage.
Okay.
And from that, we basically we'll pull plates from that. So we work internally in ACCG EXRs just because it's easier for Flame to read that file system.
Okay.
And basically, when we give it to the client, we ask them what they want. So sometimes clients will want DPXs. It's a higher res like format that we can give out instead of just giving them back MOVs because they're not that easy and like moldable. It goes back to gray.
Yeah, and obviously the Flying Colour Company does a lot of VFX.
So it's actually just VFX that we do at the Flying Colour Company. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And let's talk about the really cool things that the company has worked on. Obviously, I think this was before you were there, but like Nocturnal Animals, Killing Eve.
Flowers.
Blinders.
Flowers is one of my favorite series ever.
Flowers. No, it's really impressive. And then since you've worked there, obviously, can you tell us some of the things? Obviously, some of it's hush hush because you're still working on it. But maybe some of the stuff that's already
hush hush.
All of it. But maybe some of the stuff that's already aired, you can just tell us about.
So recently we had a job that came in, which was sex education. We needed to kind of just like do some cleanups and stuff I think it was from an external company that just got us to do some extra plates for them that we helped just clean up their plates so that it was I think there was just too much work on their side, which was actually a lot of fun to work on. I personally haven't watched any sex education, but it looks like a really good show.
I mean, I was literally the other day, season 3 came out like a week ago when we were recording this, and I watched it all in one day. Just like
same. I binged it all in one night. Just one sitting. So
just good. Like I think it was a Saturday.
So what goes into doing like plate cleanup? Like what was the specifics of that? Obviously, as much as you can tell. Obviously.
So I personally don't do plate cleanup. So there are artists so I just do the pulling of the plates and like do the color pipeline and stuff for them. So plate cleanup is basically sometimes we have shows that we work on where it's set in a different time period. So we would have to remove lampposts or electrical sockets. It's just stuff that you don't see during production that they just kind of need to clean up. Or there's a show that we're working on currently where the guy's hair was too long, so it didn't match the previous scene.
Okay.
So one of our artists had to cut this man's hair just so that it would look short and normal.
What?
No, some of the things we work on is crazy. It's a lot of fun to actually see like the process of how this goes.
Yeah, and it's obviously a lot of big budget stuff.
Yeah.
Would you say you guys do a lot of work for Netflix, or what is sort of your main? Or like a lot of different.
So our main client is we don't work directly with Netflix. We work through like we're part of the chain. So usually Netflix goes through another client or like so kind of what Gilla does, like post-producing and stuff like that, where it goes through that company and then they kind of like shuffle the cards around to see which production houses do which graphics and all that.
Okay.
So it's like a broad thing. It's not really like Netflix just comes to us and says, cool, you do all this.
Yeah.
Because I think my company would explode if Netflix was just like, hey
do all of our
kill all these shots.
Yeah,
I can imagine. That's so cool. That's very, very cool.
I just wanted to ask, before I forget, it's not one of the questions here, but What is just for me personally, I've always wanted to know the specifics of the pipeline of, you mentioned color and VFX, right? How do those two work together? Because it seems like a very intricate thing um, in terms of like, I've always been thinking like there's like a main grader who doesn't work at your company, but then you
Yeah.
need to do visual effects and clean up plates, but then obviously, if you sort of add stuff or take stuff away, that stuff needs to
Yeah.
sort of like match the shot, and then needs to work back in their pipeline. So
Yeah.
how does that process work?
Would you like me to go like deep in depth?
Yes. Well, as much as you can. I think it's a
Yeah.
I've been looking up a lot online about it, and there's like not much. So
So how it usually works is so let's say the pre-production and production goes onto set. They will shoot the stuff with either, depends, like most of the cameras that we get from are Arri or Sony or sometimes Red. Rarely we get the Phantom cameras, but it's mostly just the Red, Sony and Arri. And productions usually have a LUT that they will put on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to explain the LUT, like the lookup table.
Yeah,
It's basically that's just their show LUT that they have, and each individual shot, because we get an EDL from the editors. So the editors send us an EDL on the stuff that they've kind of roughly graded within editing.
Mm-hmm.
So in Flame, because it's a node-based software, like the artist will get the plate, which is like the ACCG, and then they do all their work. And at the end of the color pipeline, we basically would have 3 nodes. So we'll have a color management node, which would then just transfer it back from ACCG color space to the camera color space. So if it was, let's say, the Arri color space or the Sony, so it'd either go log C, S log, or the Red.
Mm-hmm.
So it's either those 3 like color managements, just so it kind of matches back to that. Because if you put a Sony LUT onto an Arri, it just looks completely wrong.
Of course.
So you would link it back from ACCG to the Sony, and then you would attach from the EDL. We will pull something that we call a CDL, which is basically just a color look, which will just give it the right information so that it looks exactly like the editor kind of tweaked it in edit.
Okay.
And then we put the show LUT on, and then basically that will match what the editor did. And then when it goes to grade, we give them a completely clean plate again, so it will look as it would if it was just a raw shot. So they would be working off something completely clean again, that they can then regrade to make it look how they want it to look.
Yeah.
So it's a whole.
Yeah, it's like a workflow. Yeah. That's very cool.
Yeah, so it's a whole like snake that it needs to go through to get to the end.
Yeah. Awesome. And some advanced techniques here on the Department Spotlight podcast. So what would you say is sort of like the difference between the UK film industry and the South African film industry?
It's very saturated here. So there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of production houses here. So a lot of work gets like dispersed, so it's not more relaxed, but because you don't have that many shots, but the budgets are a lot higher here.
Mm.
So because there's so many production houses, they can just keep pushing more work onto different production houses. Whereas when I was working in South Africa, your deadline was very tight.
Yeah.
And you had to kind of like just work around that.
Yeah.
They have their differences, they have their perks.
Yeah.
So it's
so you have
it's fun on both sides.
So you have like a lot more time, you would say, over there. No. Okay. What
No.
Can you tell us like sort of how long the process, or how long the deadlines are?
So it depends on the turnover for the shots.
Mm-hmm.
So with the show that's on All 5 at the moment, which is All Creatures Great and Small, it's once a month we would get a new episode turned over from the editor.
Okay.
So it's kind of just keeping the pipeline moving.
Mm.
So once we get episode 1, we'll work on that, and then the editor starts cutting it 2.
Mm.
And then ep 1 goes out, and then we get ep 2. So it just never like slows
Never
down.
stops.
It just continues. It just continuously moves.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about the job that you're doing now, right? And the position that you got there. Would you say that coming to film school helped you with that? Or if you didn't go to film school, would you still have gotten the same job?
I'm going to say not at all. It didn't help me or prepare me in, like, it's and after we learned like a broad spectrum of what you should know.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of, and the problem that I found from after to when I'm working in the UK is the software that I'm working on is completely different.
Mm.
Like I don't think after would teach us Flame or Nuke.
We actually
like at all.
We actually did do Nuke VFX.
Oh, did you guys do Nuke?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't do visual effects.
You did editing. Yeah. No, we did do.
I did editing.
Yeah.
So we did the proxies and like export, like transcoding the footage and stuff like that. So it gave me like a broad like understanding of what I need to know.
Mm-hmm.
But the software that you use in South Africa is completely different to what the software that you would use here.
Yeah.
And it's just, you kind of just need to, like, even when I left after for the first company that I worked for, I like was self-taught. I taught myself like After Effects and stuff like that so that I could just learn and just kind of move forward in that company and just progress to kind of just get better at what I do.
And these companies didn't even ask for your degree or?
Digital Union that I worked at in South Africa, no, and London, not at all. Like they just asked for my CV. They asked for what what I knew.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of the same here, to be honest. No one really cares about where you've studied as long as you've got a list of things that you've done, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So do you regret going to film school?
I don't regret going to film school. It did teach me a lot. Like I did learn a lot about the different like pipelines and like pre-production, post-production, and actually just going on set and stuff like that. It did teach me a lot because like I understand like if the editor says to me now, oh no, like this is just going to take some time. I have to do this and this and this. So I do understand, and I'm not that pressing on them to kind of harass them because I understand what they're going through and what's happening.
Yeah.
So it does help. Like it's not a complete waste because then I'm sure my mother would kill me if I just said, oh no, mum, you wasted all your money sitting in school.
Yeah.
But it was like the connections that, especially if I was staying in South Africa, the connections that I made at After are good because the people there would be working in the industry that I'm working in. So it is very helpful, I would say, if you stay within that community.
Yeah, like I mean, our company is obviously we're all After students, and we actually work with a lot of After students as well because those are the people that we know. But I mean, it makes sense. Like even us talking now, we met at After. So I guess that just coming back to what we always say is just connections that you make at film school.
Your job in South Africa was at Digital Union. How did you say you got that job again? Was it through a connection that you knew someone from After, or what was that? Okay.
It wasn't from After. It was a family friend that does location scouting for films.
Okay.
And they kind of got me in touch with my boss at the time's wife. And she just said to me, she's like, I'm not going to give you a job for 6 months. Like, go to this company rather. And then and then from there, I just kind of got the job there and just worked there for 3.5 years.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So let's talk about more like generally. How do you like? Isn't it cool getting this footage from shows that nobody's seen yet, and you're like, oh, this is interesting, or like, what does it feel like just working on these shows?
It's very exciting. It's also quite annoying when you work on shows that you watch. Because just sitting there like,
oh man.
Because like I watch a lot of the shows that I work on without audio because I'm just putting plates and stuff, and occasionally I have to cut like mini cuts for the director to kind of see the visual effects shots in sequence so that they can't just look at one shot and be like, oh, that looks fine, and then you watch it in sequence and it's like, that looks completely wrong.
True. Okay.
So it's good fun though. Like it makes me feel good. Like it's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I know I'm working on this really big show because like one day eventually, like I want to like have my name running down the credits.
Yeah.
And just show like, oh, yeah, no, I worked on that. Look at my name. No, with the company that I work for, it's the company's name, the production house that
gets the credit.
Gets put as they did the main visual effects for the show.
Okay.
Which still makes me feel good.
Yeah, I mean, still, if you are talking to your friends or you meet someone who's like, oh yeah, I worked on this show and this show.
Yeah.
And then it's probably a really cool conversation starter.
What was the most complex like shot or sequence that you guys have worked on? You don't. I mean, obviously, while you're there, or maybe you heard stories, or you don't have to go into
Yeah.
specifics about like what the actual name of the thing was, but like, what 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 was like the most mammoth task?
The most mammoth task that we have at the moment for a show is there's a lady rowing, yeah, but she's rowing on blue screen,
Okay.
and they need to add that onto the water, and they need to add the rowing water, and it's just, and you just sit there and you're like, you could have just put her in
put
water,
her in the
and she
water.
would have been fine, just casually rowing down that lake.
That's great. Is it like that scene in what's it, The Social Network, where they like replacing? Wait, are you guys like placing her on a background, or are you just like compositing a face onto something else that they shot?
Oh no, we're placing on the background.
Oh damn.
But there's also a shot where this lady is falling,
Okay.
but they didn't like the way that her face looked, so they replaced her face. So she has a different reaction.
That's wild.
That's crazy. And then, do you guys have any input? Like, if somebody's like, okay, we have the shot and it needs to do this thing, and then you're like, okay, but then we need to shoot that thing, or do they just give you the assets and like do the thing?
So we have, one of the head artists, like the head visual effects people, would go onto set
Okay.
and kind of give the client a brief of saying, cool, we can do that if you do that. And then they kind of just nudge them in the right direction to how to shoot it, so that they don't just throw us a curveball and be like, hey, just do that for us, thanks.
Just replace the face, but we didn't shoot another face.
How does a decision like that, like, do they come to you directly? Like, does the client come to you directly and then they view it and then you make the decision there? Or is it like a decision that's made and then it goes like through the pipeline and then you guys get stuck with like, oh, they want a whole new face or a whole new... How does that one decision affect like the entire pipeline?
So we've got, so there's usually like, we've got 3 head visual effects artists, and then there is one of the heads of the company would go onto set and kind of say, because he's worked on a lot of big shows and lots of movies. So he has like a broad understanding of what's possible and what's not possible, because he's worked on Flame as well. So he's not, he would understand if it's possible, like he could do it or not.
Yeah.
And the visual effects artist would just go onto set and be like, oh no, if you shoot it like this, we can kind of just do that and we can add this. Like there's a show that we have that, because there was a car park behind the show, they had to basically put a blue screen and stuff like that so that we could just comp in like the mountains in the background, because the car park wasn't in that day and age, so it would be wrong.
Okay.
So yeah, if the artists are there to kind of just give their knowledge and understanding of it, they kind of just help the director. And the directors are very understanding here. Like they tell you their vision and they'll be like, cool, we can execute this vision if we just do a little bit to the side.
So you guys are included in post-production, I mean pre-production as well? No.
Well, kind of.
Okay.
But like they go onto set, they're on production,
so,
not really pre-production.
So it's not like decided before they go on set.
No.
So just go on set and
they don't plan before. So
interesting.
I think the directors and the writers would kind of plan what shots they want. And then on set, when the visual effects artist comes on, they'll tell them if it's possible or not.
Okay. Interesting.
Or if they just need to try and shoot it on day and be like, that's not going to be possible. You just need to shoot something else.
Oh, okay. And then they just schedule it for another day.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I never thought, I was like, obviously they're in pre-production.
So pre-production, I think we don't really go into pre-production. It's mostly just the post-production that we deal with. So I think they probably do have like a visual effects person, not from our company, but that would be like, oh no, we could do this, we can do this. And it's all like mostly compositing and stuff like that. So it's not hard stuff.
Yeah.
Because they have special effects like on set as well. So they kind of just incorporated one another and cleaning up and all that. So everything is possible. It's not like we're doing Avatar.
Yeah. All right. No, that's cool. I mean, a show like Sex Education. Yeah. A show like I can't say it. Sex Education. You know, it's not a show where there is like a bunch of explosions or that much, and it's. I'm sure like if we actually like if you point out all of the VFX shots, we'd be like, why? But it's there's a lot that goes into it. Eh?
Yeah. So basically, for Sex Education was just making the crowd bigger and stuff like that. So it's just basically they didn't shoot that many people, so they just need to kind of just make the crowd a larger crowd inside the hall that they were in. So it's just adding stuff and like removing little things that you need to kind of just make the story better.
That makes a lot of sense.
On a show that is not VFX, like VFX heavy, you know what I mean, with like obvious CG, per episode, how many shots are VFX actually?
So the one show we're working on, which is not very heavy VFX, which is, I think, no, Creatures is quite big. I don't know. There's a lot of shows have a lot more visual effects than you know. Like I would say most shows have about 60 shots per episode.
Okay.
That are visual effects.
That's crazy. And then you mentioned the editors give you like the EDL. Is that like a locked cut, or are they still like tweaking here and there?
So sometimes they give us an EDL from like a segment of the cut. So they kind of give us like, they'll turn over 16 turnovers, but that turnover will be the first episode. But they'll only give us like 4 or 5 shots within that turnover.
Okay.
And then we do get the whole cut as well, where we get the EDL and then we just kind of cut it up into the whole visual effects shots. But yeah, sometimes it's drips and drabs. Like the one show that I'm working on, they just give us like an episode with one EDL. So it all depends on the client, really, how they want to give us the things.
I was just thinking because like even on the like shorts that we do, if there's like a VFX shot and then later on change the edits and then, now I have to go back and export a couple of more frames, couple less frames or whatever. So yeah, I was wondering about that. Makes sense. Do you guys ever go back on shots? Like do you second versions or do you once you deliver it?
Our shots go through like versioning periods. So I think most of the time we do version up so the client sees it and they get feedback and then we kind of just go up on the versions. But if a client resupplies something, then that version would change entirely. So it all depends on. But most of the time, like when we get the shots, it's when the edit is locked.
Okay.
So we won't really have big, massive tweaks.
Yeah.
The shot would be the shot, but we would they would extend it or shorten it, but we give them the whole length that we got given.
Okay.
Unless they change it, which is rare.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Yeah, because I mean, I'm sure it costs a lot of money per shot.
Yeah. I'm not part of that department, but I know it is a lot.
It's like in the budget, just VFX, a lot.
Yeah, a lot. Just a big red line underneath. No.
If someone is going into making a short or anything, TV show, anything, film, what are some recommendations you'd give for planning for visual effects?
For planning for visual effects, well, as we did in After, like with your whole storyboards and stuff like that, you have to have something in your head before you just go into set. Like as a director and as a writer, you need to kind of understand what you're writing before you just get onto set and be like, cool, well, I need to have this. And then everyone's going to tell you, no, that's not possible. Because like you kind of have an understanding within your own head, even if you don't do visual effects, of what's possible. Like you can't just assume like, because if you had to be brand new and be like, okay, cool, well, I need to like do all of this. And if you can't do it in your head, then of course, like the visual effects artist is not going to be able to do it. So it's just planning ahead. Like you in your head would understand that you need to just do certain things to make it more, not easier, but just like helping the pipeline move along when the visual effects actually needs to do their part. So yeah, it's mostly just planning, I would say. If you were writing a short film just to get like incorporate visual effects, you just need to plan either with the visual effects or just have an understanding of what you want.
Yeah, I guess you could do tests as well. Yeah. Do you guys the plates that you do, right? We obviously spoke about, replacing blue screens and all that stuff. Do you ever like do simple things like removing cables or stuff that's like, it's like, why didn't you just fix it? Like simple things. Like obviously we spoke about just put her in the water, but like things like cables or.
So we have a show at the moment because it's set in, I think, the 1960s or 1950s. There's a lady that she comes walking down the stairs and she turns the corner, and I was watching it with one of the heads of our company, and I was like, what did they change? They're like, oh no, they just need to move the light switch. And I was like, but couldn't they have just like on set removed that? They're like, oh no, they forgot about it. And I was like, dude,
It's like that.
it's this little box, this big, on the wall.
And then the producer's like, a lot of money to remove the light switch.
But those shots are usually they're not that expensive. But the thing is, because it needs to be tracked and everything like that it's about, I would say, like a 2-hour shot, a 3-hour shot, because you need to track it and everything like that, paint it out, make it look like the wall. Like little things, a lot of work still goes into it, because you have to track the object that you're removing, even if it's like on All Creatures, they were sitting on the roof, but because the artist didn't feel safe, they had a harness on them. Mm-hmm. So the artist had to paint out the harness on the lady so that she was just sitting on the roof.
Oh, okay. Is a shot like that just a normal harness, or do they put like a green harness, or is it like
just a normal harness?
All right.
And then
that's
like usually, like I think it's like a thin harness that they put around the waist, and then kind of just paint that out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, VFX, man, it's magic.
What do you do? Does your company do much 3D work?
So we got 2 or 3 visual effects that do like 3D and modeling and stuff like that. So it depends on the show. So they do Flame, but they mostly work in Maya. So if we need to, like the one show we have, because Big Ben at the moment has scaffolding and stuff around it. So the show wants Big Ben, so we had to render Big Ben and track Big Ben to the building.
Do they still go shoot those shots with the scaffolding, or do you guys just completely? Yeah. Okay.
They go shoot the shot with the scaffolding, but the building that we were shooting wasn't any Parliament building, but we made it look like a Parliament building.
Nice.
Because I don't think you're allowed to shoot inside Parliament.
Well, I mean, yeah, you just like get one of those. What's it? Facebook glasses. Yeah. And you're just recording for like 15 seconds at a time.
No, it's good fun. Like it depends on, like, as you guys have seen on like at Varsity and stuff like that. If you need to shoot something, you can always trick the audience into thinking other things. So if you can kind of dress the set to how you want it to look, and then add this little thing in the distance, it would look real, because you kind of tricking it, and you've done your set build and stuff like that to make it look that would be in the background. So it's just manipulating, really. So when we do 3D, it's not like big gargoyles and stuff like that flying around, but it's like the little things. Like there's a show we're working on where the girl throws it's like a bookend. It's a gargoyle bookend, but because you can't endanger your artist, it's a green pillow.
Okay.
But then the 3D artist had to 3D like a little bookend. So it's
okay.
It depends on what you need, really, in 3D.
Okay. Is there anything that you want to ask us? I don't know. I mean, you're the more interesting person. I feel like we're not really anything.
Never say that, because the grind never stops. Like you need to always like work hard, and like what we spoke about the other day, you guys are working hard. As long as you're working and not just like kind of, I'm not doing anything. Yeah. If you're working and actually putting your talents to the grind, you're good. Because like you guys are busy doing a lot of like short films and stuff like that. You're shooting ads. It's always like you're still working hard, and you kind of bringing up the South African industry, which is good, which is what we need. I know I, like you said, abandoned you, but
I was just joking.
as long as you're keeping it, like, there's a lot of good work in South Africa, and there's a lot of good work that comes out of South Africa. So as long as you're keeping yourself busy and you're actually bettering yourself, because that's how I came to the UK. I bettered myself, and I just kind of taught myself new things, which is what you guys do. Like when I watch your guys' YouTube and listen to the podcast, you guys are bettering yourselves.
Thanks.
So as long as you're moving forward, it's good.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's all you gotta do.
So then last thing, I think, what would you tell somebody, or say, what would you tell young Niel at 18 years old before after graduating matric, before coming to after? What would you tell him and other people like you at that stage?
I would say, like, when you kind of want to like go into something that you want to do, always go in as an empty cup. Never go in as a half full cup, because if you go as a half full cup, because you need to kind of take in all the knowledge you can from people that know a lot more than you, and also if they're willing to teach you, you can learn a lot, which is what I had when I went to Digital Union. I learned a lot from my seniors. They just knew a lot, and they just taught me a lot about the industry and like the software that they use. So I don't know, like just never stop pushing yourself and stop like learning new things. It's always good to learn new things and like put yourself out of your comfort zone so that you actually learn and better yourself. So yeah, that's what I would tell myself. Just keep bettering yourself. There's always something new you could learn.
Yeah. Well, that's really inspiring. Yeah. And I mean, I'm inspired. I want to go empty myself and learn more things.
Just go to the bathroom.
Yeah. Exactly.
Start again.
Well, thank you so much, Niel. This is an awesome conversation.
Thanks, man.
And thank you for bringing your knowledge. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of questions that we wanted to ask, but we couldn't because obviously you are bound by contracts and so on. But thank you so much for taking the time and speaking to us and sharing some of the really interesting work that you're doing over there. Hopefully next time we can come to you. Me and Mark actually got our second vax yesterday. So if the UK stops the the South Africa ban, maybe we can come visit and then we can do like a live podcast. That would be cool.
Yeah, no, I'd be keen. It'd be lots of fun, I think.
Amazing.
It'd be good fun.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, and then we'll see you next time.
Cool. See you guys next time.
Cheers,
man. And that's it for our conversation with Niel. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a wonderful chat. We miss you lots. You abandoned us. We'll never forgive you. No, I'm kidding.
Just all of the emotions just suddenly came out there.
It's really great that you're doing so well. We're just filled with so much joy for you. We're so proud of you. It's amazing. And yeah, I hope you listeners out there and watchers out there learned something about the intricacies of pipelines of post-production. We went pretty in-depth in some parts and we found it fascinating. We hope you did too.
And remember that this podcast is also available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else that you listen to your podcasts. So if you would like to listen to it instead of watching us, then consider going over there and doing that.
And since you're moving on to Spotify, then you might as well go to SUP as well and check out short films there and just support short film makers in South Africa.
Exactly. And if you did like it, then do what it says in the name. Smash the like button. We would really appreciate that. It helps us out quite a lot with, the YouTube algorithm and all that stuff. And then if you do like it and you watch all of our other videos and then you like those as well, then maybe you should consider subscribing. I don't know why I did this for subscribing, but please subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. But until next time, go out there, stay safe, and make your movie.